I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago.
Hi guys, welcome to my channel. It's my first video and I'm really worried about it, but I hope you will enjoy it. Today we will be sewing a leather trench coat. I dreamt about it for a long time, but I didn't want something like everybody else had. So I found this pattern. It had such a matrix or even gothic vibes, and I decided that's it. It's what I wanted. So I bought this faux black leather, also lining, it's rather warm. Also we will need zippers, 4 ones, it's 80 centimeters, and shoulder pads and bottoms, it's magnetic. So let's get started. So for the beginning I printed all the patterns and now just basically cutting all bottom and right sides of every piece of paper. It looks like I am shredding machine. That's all the cuttings I have after it, and all prepared pieces for the main fabric and for the lining. And now I just glue together all the pieces according to the markings, letters for the columns and numbers for the rows, making same thing for the lining part. And after that I have a very large and clumsy piece of paper which I cutting into details of pattern. I found out that it is much more convenient to roughly divide this large piece into parts of the pattern and then neatly cut out each detail. Finally cut all the details and I have such a pretty nice mess to clean up. Starting to place all the details on the main fabric. In the instruction, which was with the pattern, told that it's better to use fabric in its full width, without any folding, to save the fabric, which is actually what I did. I placing each detail like it shown in instructions and marking numbers of them to not to get confused with them later. Also I'm marking the control points. As I have not such a big table to place there my fabric, I did all this on the floor, and this was very uncomfortable. Every part of my body was hurt like after a workout. Besides, the entire length of the fabric didn't fit in my room anyway. It was 4 meters long, so I had to move the already marked part and pull a clean one, as you can see on the video. Some details were with the fold markings, so there should be first drawn around and then turned over along the fold and mirrored into a whole part. Now I'm cutting all the pieces from the main fabric. Same thing is waiting for me with the lining. Very meditative activity. Yes, all the pieces are cut out. Now it's turn for the lining. Same thing. I place all the details on fabric and draw it around piece by piece. Fortunately, there are not as many of them as from the main fabric. Besides, all this process was speed up 100 times. It's not a joke. So, I finally cut all the pieces and interlined some of them on the necklines and hemlines. Now I need to take this central bottom pieces of back and make a stitch here and here, except 1 centimeter here. Let's do it. And now we take bottom side part of the back and make a seam for all this line on the both sides. And now we have fully bottom back part with the slot. Now we need to press all the things to the center and then make a seam on the right side. So it turns out not so easy as I thought because faux leather is really stretchy and it's gathering all the time. And then I remembered some Instagram hack about duct tape on the machine foot. And it turns out really well. I tried it on a piece of fabric and it's not every gather at all. So, I made top stitch on every part of the bottom. It's gathering a little in thick places, but I found that really good pressing is fixing it. And I made top stitch on the center till the opening. And now we start processing the pocket. First of all, we need to take bottom, central and side part of the front and sew them together. And after that, we pressing seam allowance towards the center and top stitching it. Same thing to the other side. I interlined place for the pockets from the wrong side, and then I pinned bordering right side to the right side, and now I need to make a stitch all over this square. Now I make a cut in the center of this rectangle, not reaching 1 cm on each side. And then I make diagonal cuts towards the corners. Now I need to fold it here and make a technical stitch for a few millimeters on the both sides here and here. Now I wrap the facing inside the cut, carefully straighten the fabric and thoroughly pressing all this with an iron. I press seam allowance as flat as I can and put a zipper into this frame, and now I will make a stitch all over it. It turned out very uneasy to make. I pinned all my hands, but I made it, and it's rather well. Need to make one more for other side. And now I have fully bottom part of the main fabric. Now I take the upper piece of the pocket and its facing, pretty side to pretty side, pinning them together and make a seam here, and then turn out, put seam allowance on lining and make here one more stitch. Here what it looks like. After that, I take bottom pocket part, place it on the edge of the pocket facing, like this, pin it, and make a seam. Also, I turned it out and made a stitch over it and facing. It turned out like this. Then I take piece of pocket with facing and put it onto the pocket frame so that both parts of the pocket match each other. I pin it and make a stitch. When both pieces of pocket is attached to the frame, I put them together, pin them, and make a seam all over the pocket. And then I saw what?
What? What the fuck?
Yes, I accidentally sewed it, and the holes are still remained. Okay, let's continue. I made the back and the both sides with the pockets. As you can see, they are completely done, and now you see why we needed facing for them. Let's move on to the top part. I take central and side parts of the back and sew them together. After that, I make a stitch on the pretty side for better look and to secure seam allowance. Now I'm taking a yoke of the back and attach it on the top of the part I already sewn. And of course make a stitch on the pretty side again. This is what it looks like. Now same thing to the front part. And again, attaching a yoke to the front part. Now I cut seam allowance and open them in different directions on the future collar and put them all to the top on the main side. Make top stitch on the main part. I take out the thread from the face inside out and then we'll make a knot manually for more neatness. Now I take bottom part of the front and top part and pin them starting from the central seam and then to the borders. We'll make a stitch and put seam allowance into different directions and then good pressing it. It turns out really nice and accurate. I'm so excited. One more look on it again. It's so neat. Now I take a bordering of the front, pin it on the control points, checking all edges are matching, and make a stitch from here to the bottom. Now I make a cut on seam allowance only of the collar till 3-4 mm, and then same for the side edge to avoid too much thickness on the seam. I turned the bordering out and made good pressing. Here how it will be look like. Now I attaching top and bottom parts of the back, matching seams on the center and sides. Here it is. And now I place back and front parts together, matching central seam, and will make a side stitch. Placing shoulders together and also sew them to each other. I take a bottom collar piece and its stand-up part and matching them from center to side, make a seam. Also, I make 2 top stitches above, retreating a few millimeters from the seam, making same thing for the top collar. Here how it looks like. And now for the bottom collar I cut seam allowances till 3 millimeters, both sides, and make notches on seam allowances for the top collar. I take top and bottom collar parts and place them together pretty side to pretty side and make seam from here to here. Pinning them together. It's not very good to pin leather material, but I found out that it's okay when pinning is only a few millimeters from the raw edge, so then holes will not be seen. I starting from edges and then finding center. After that finding center between pins and so on. After sewing collars together, I cut all the seam allowance on the corners till few millimeters and make notches along the curved places for better turning out. To make corners really sharp and neat, I use cloth scissors and carefully push the fabric turn out. For the hanger loop, I fold it like a bias tape, then fold it in half and make a stitch. I sewn it by hand on the back bordering at 3 cm from the center for each side. Now I take this bordering and attach it to the front bordering. The most observant have already noticed what is wrong. And now is rather tricky part. I take a collar and place it center to the back center. And and then make a notch in 8 mm on the front yoke. After that, I place collar from the center till the front lapel. It should be maximum close to it, otherwise the collar will not be done. It's not so easy to place good enough seam allowance for the cut, but after some tries it will succeed. I pinned one side to show you how it will be look like when done with lapel. After that, I tried to make same thing for the upper part of the collar and realize,
What?
Yes, the bordering should be upside down. I don't know is it my mistake or instruction, but I redone all this and attached the upper collar. Now I take the seam allowance of the both parts of the collar and make a seam to attach them together. Now the collar will not be opening and inflate. I decide to make some fitting of the coat and it looks good. Despite of all my suffering, I'm so excited of how it turns out. Now turn off the sleeve. I take upper and bottom parts of the sleeve, pretty side to pretty side, and make here a seam. Also, I made top stitch on it to secure seam allowance. Put the cuff on the sleeve and make a stitch. Again tricky part. I take a zipper and turn it, placing it on a 1 cm from the raw edge along my markings of frame for zipper. Make a stitch. Then I close the zipper and mark place for the cuff seam and the end of the zipper frame. Then open the zipper, turn it over and place it according to marks. Make a seam close to the teeth of zipper. I cut the frame in the center except 1 cm, make diagonal cuts and turn the zipper over. After that, I tuck the tip of the zipper into the cut. It's rather tricky. Well done! Now I take the lining of the sleeve and bordering of sleeve slit and attach them pretty side to pretty side. Take upper and bottom parts of sleeve lining and sew them together. Now I take sleeve lining and sleeve bordering and sew them too. I cut the center of zipper frame on lining again with diagonal cuts on the end and place sleeve and its lining like it will be looks at complete coat. After that, I turn lining over and place it to seam allowance of zipper, so that it will be pretty side to pretty side. complete! It is so accurate! Now I take 3 edges of the main fabric and sew them pretty side to pretty side. Same thing for the lining. Oops! My thread told it's enough for her. Let's continue. So I sewed both sides and now I turn over the main fabric and push it in lining part. After that I pin cuff and its bordering together and make a seam. I turn over the sleeve again, now sew like it will be when complete. And now I will make a top stitch on the cuff. One more fitting. Now with the sleeve. Looks very good. I mark on the sleeve its top and bottom and also points where will be pasting stitch to fit the sleeve in armhole. Now I just pull the bottom thread to gather a little the top of the sleeve. I think it's a little too much, but it's by pattern. We'll take a look. I place the sleeve into the armhole and pin it first on the top and bottom, accordingly to the shoulder and side seams. And then I place the sleeve from the bottom without gathering and after with gathering remain from the control points. It will be look like this. Like I thought, it has some gathering, but okay, let it be. I sewn by hand a shoulder pads in these 3 points. I take a belt loop, fold it in 3 and make a stitch, then cut it in half. Now I place them on side seam, firstly on bottom, then fold it and sew it, and then same for the upper part. I made it manually. Now turn for the lining. I take 2 central parts of the back and sew them together. Now I place side parts of the back pretty side to pretty side and sew them to both sides. Yes, it's finishing touches. I take side and central parts of the front lining and attach them to each other.
It's a new day, and nothing's really quite going your way.
Then I place front parts on back part, pretty side to pretty side, and make a seam on sides and shoulders. Fitting the lining. It's rather interesting look. Maybe to make such a dress? Now I attach main fabric part and lining, pretty side to pretty side, make a basting stitch by hand and will make a stitch all over from bottom to back bordering and again to the bottom. Now I will attach the sleeve lining. I take a shoulder seam and place to the sleeve top. After that, I attach them like they should look at complete. And take it from the inside out, then turn over, pin it, and carefully turn over the main part to find the pin. After that, I place seam allowance together pretty side to pretty side and pin it all over, attaching bottom with the side seam. It should be fit without gathering. Make a stitch. As I have a warm lining which holds its shape rather well, I decided to make a bottom hemline not as an instruction said, because there was about thin lining. For it, I measure 4 cm from the main fabric and mark it on the lining to cut, so then the leather will be fold and hide lining. I ripped a little the front seams to left 2 cm of main fabric to make a fold. Here will be a cut, and I will make a seam here. After I will make a fold like this, and so. I'm cutting off the excess from the lining. It was a little scary. Now I pin and will sew all this hem till this point. After that, I will place this fold like this and make a stitch. After, I will sew this vertical slit opening and then place and sew this fold here. So, here it is. Carefully turn out this part of bottom and we have very neat hemline. Both sides, which I just will press by iron well. Also, I need such a piece of leather, which I just fold and make a seam. 2 ones. I place it one side on top of the lining sleeve and other on main sleeve and make a stitch, so then the sleeves will be secure. Now I take other side of the slit and make a vertical seam except a hole for the turning inside out all coat. Also make a 2 cm fold on bottom. It looks like a sack of fabric. Take a belt and fold it in half and make a stitch all over except a hole for turning it inside out. Same thing with the smaller part of the belt. Cutting the corners and turn inside out. After that, make a top stitch all over as frame. Cutting the corners and turn it inside out.
It's a new day, and nothing's really quite going your way. You got bad news that's confusing. You got sad news that you're wounded. And it feels like the worst time. You're worried and scared.
Use closed scissors to help it. After that, make a top stitch all over as frame. Now make a pressing by iron both belts and make a top stitch all over the front opening from bottom to collar and again to the bottom. I hate work with leather. But I gather my strength and let's see what I've got.
Stay strong when it all falls apart and goes wrong.
And back to the question, was it worth it? My answer, yes it was. Do you surprised? Me too. Not so much because of result, however, I'm quite satisfied with this strange coat and will wear it in future. By the way, eventually the bottom of it fell off and stopped bristling, which bothered me the most. But of course, the most important, why all it was worth it, its experience. Yes, no matter how tried it sounds, but this project really raised my level of serving, pronunciation of English. I'm no longer afraid of camera so much. And also I realized that leather needs to be sewn by special foot, and one more, that I hate ready-made patterns. That's why I already filmed a new video about sewing a summer dress. It is maximally easy, without any patterns at all, by your measurements, fully beginner-friendly. So check out and watch my next video by the hint or at description below. Well, I hope you had a good time. Bye, see ya in the next videos.